Glenn. And firstly, my congratulations to all the awardees for their service to the community. It is well appreciated. It is my pleasure today to introduce the Deputy Commissioner for the Regional Field Operations, Michael John Willing, APM. Now Michael's got a rap sheet that would take me longer than the time we've allocated today. But Michael started in the New South Wales Police Force in October 1990 and was stationed at Annandale Police Station in inner Sydney. For the next 20 years, Michael worked his way through the ranks, working his way into one of the major positions, which was Commander in November 2011 of the Homicide Squad at the State Crime Command. And he was there as Detective Superintendent. He spent nearly 6 years there and was one of the longest serving officers in that role. In October 2017, Michael was appointed Commander of the Counter-Terrorism and Special Tactics Command, and at the rank of Assistant Commissioner. And he fulfilled many roles there, leading up to his appointment as Commander again, but this time of the New South Wales Police Force Central Metropolitan Region, which is one of the largest in the New South Wales Police Force, and he was in charge of about 2,500 employees. I think one of the things that I think Michael really came to prominence was in January 2020. And Michael was appointed by the Premier of New South Wales as the State Recovery Coordinator and head of the New South Wales Disaster Recovery Office. And that was leading the state's recovery out of the 2019-20 bushfire disaster. It was a joint whole of government task force supported by the largest mobilised Australian Defence Force contingent since the Second World War. Michael has been recognised by the powers that be, and in July this year, 2021, Michael was appointed Deputy Commissioner, New South Wales Regional Field Operations, and he's in charge of about 5,000 staff. During these 30-odd years that Michael's been in the force, serving the community, helping us be the force that we are, as well as many of the policing attributes he brings to it. Michael has also got many formal qualifications, including Company Director's course as a graduate, an Executive Master of Public Administration, Master and MBA, Graduate Diploma in Criminology, Graduate Certificate in Applied Management, Bachelor of Policing, and then one of the final and really important ones was he attained the Australian Police Medal, the APM, in 2016 as part of the Queen's Birthday Honours. And that goes with many other ribbons and clasps that he's attained through his years in the police. With great pleasure that we have today, and I bring you speaking on the subject of policing in the CBD in these challenging times, Deputy Commissioner Michael Willing, APM. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I hope you can all hear me properly. Can I firstly just say good afternoon to the distinguished guests that are joining us, and good afternoon to ladies and gentlemen. But thank you for the opportunity of saying a few brief words to such an esteemed group as the Rotary Club of Sydney. And thank you very much for acknowledging the efforts of my colleagues down the road there at the City Police Area Command. Great people doing a great job in and around the city. I did see them on the screen before, so a big shout out to them. Can I firstly express my profound thanks to the President and Directors for not only the invitation of saying a few words, but again for recognising the efforts of your local police. The local Rotary Police Officer of the Year Awards are special ceremonies wherever they're held, and they're special for the police because of the recognition that comes from such esteemed groups as yourself. So can I just please pass on my own congratulations to Sarah, Roland and Samantha for a job really, really well done. I guess this is a little bit unusual for me and indeed I guess everyone else having a an awards ceremony, which is online. But that's where we are at the moment. And hopefully, fingers crossed, not for too much longer, but it's been certainly a challenging time over the last 18 months. And obviously COVID will feature in terms of what I might briefly touch on. Thank you, John, for outlining my sort of service history there. I hope I can live up to what you've just said in so many ways, but you touched on a couple of different commands that I've had there that have really been beneficial or really informative for me in terms of my policing career. As you said, 30 years I've been in the organisation. I've loved every minute of it. Hopefully there's quite a few years left for me. But, you know, one of those positions that I had was as the commander of the homicide squad for 6 years. I was the longest serving commander of the squad. It's a special position, and the men and women that do the investigations there are second to none. And it was such a privilege to lead that command. Indeed, counterterrorism and special tactics, when as the assistant commissioner in charge of that, a big focus of what I was doing there was looking at the operations in and around the CBD because of the critical infrastructure and obviously the economic impact of a potential terrorism attack that could take place in and around the CBD. So I was at the forefront of my thinking, and having taken on that role just after, I should say, the delivery of the inquest findings into the Link Cafe. It was a significant part of my work was getting us, I guess, back up to speed from a counterterrorism perspective while I had that command. And lastly, as the Assistant Commissioner and Commander of the Central Metropolitan Region, the epicenter of everything I did was focused on the Sydney CBD in so many ways. So whilst I had a little over 2,500 staff there, I was spread across 10 police area commands. And the biggest, most complex and busiest command was the City of Sydney Police Area Command. Well led, good people there. So I guess that leads me to be an apt person to say a couple of words around what I guess the title policing in the CBD in these challenging times may well be. But I think I will just touch on a couple of different things. One, COVID related, and the second one not. That have impacted on us over the last 18 months or so, or indeed the last couple of years. The first one is obviously protests and COVID-related protests. The second one is the 24-hour economy, alcohol-related restrictions, etc., and where we have come from and where we're going with that. But in terms of protests or COVID itself, I'll take a step back. The impact of COVID on our organisation, as you would expect, like the wider society, has been significant. Last year, on the back of coming out of bushfires, our most devastating natural disaster that we've faced, we all, as a society, went straight into COVID. And who would have thought we would be where we are now, and having gone through the things that we've been through. Now, the New South Wales Police Force, as many of you know, took on the combat agency status. So we took on the lead for the response to COVID. The Commissioner of Police did as the State Emergency Operations Controller. So with that came a lot of responsibility and a lot of resources that have been dedicated to the COVID operation in and around the CBD. The most notably, of course, has been the hotel quarantine operation, which has impacted on us. It still impacts on us. To this point, we've had over 250,000 people come back in through our airport operations and have been in quarantine in hotels, not just in and around the CBD, but not too far away. On top of that, over 60,000 flight crew have come through those hotels as well. So that operation has been ongoing. We've been doing that with health and, of course, the ADF, which has been a real challenge for all of us agencies. But I think when you look comparatively around the world and in other areas, I think that the New South Wales Police Force has done a great job. Further afield, of course, the issue of border operations has, for us, been a challenge as well. Last year, we closed the Victorian border, and we had over 14,000 police ships down on the border there, checking over 5 million vehicles. These are things that we just never thought that we would have to do when you look back, a couple of years ago. But they've been a challenge. They've been a challenge on our workforce as well. Up until the recent Delta variant, we were proud to say that we didn't have one officer contract COVID whilst on the job. Now, that's obviously changed with the Delta variant and the problems and I guess the challenges that come with that. But proud to say that, like all times of crisis, it's caused our organisation to really rethink and really innovate about the way we look after our officers when it comes to COVID, and that's something that we're fairly proud of. So with COVID, of course, comes community issues. I'm a big believer in, and it's to the core of who I am, in the foundations of what we do in policing, which is the Peelian principles of policing, and that is that we police by consent of the community, and we police with the support and the trust of the community. And of course, during COVID, that trust and that legitimacy in policing, in my view, has been tested. And it's been, the fragility around that has been quite evident. And as the commander of the Central Metropolitan Region, up until recently, I had responsibility for all the major protests that were conducted in the city. For those who don't know, we get around 800 protests a year in and around the Sydney CBD area. Most of them you wouldn't see, you wouldn't know of. But of course, we've had huge protests in the last couple of years. And our posture has always been to facilitate the right to free speech and facilitate the movement of people in and around the CBD, as long as it's done in a safe way and as long as it's done with minimal disruption to people going about their normal business. So we've usually facilitated those without major concern. In 2019, we facilitated the Schools for Climate Change rally here in Sydney, which saw 50,000 people in and out of the city. A big challenge for a police force, but we were able to facilitate the movement of those large numbers in and out with minimal problems. So for us, and with the Peelian principles of policing, I guess, in mind, having to enforce health orders in a public order or a protest situation has been a real challenge for us. That balance between liberty versus enforcement has been something which has been challenging in and around the CBD. Non-compliance and discontent versus community compliance and sacrifice has been a real challenge for us. And last year, we saw a number of matters taken to the New South Wales Supreme Court for the first time in many years on the basis of public health orders and public health. Did we like doing that, or did I like doing that? No, it's not something that we like doing, but it was something that we felt that we had to do based on the health advice at the time. But it was a challenge, and it was a challenge unlike that we have seen in our society for many, many years. The impact of COVID in and around the CBD on licensed premises, of course, and normal policing, if I can put it that way, has been self-evident. New Year's Eve hasn't been New Year's Eve from my experience for a little time now. And we've had music festivals that have been cancelled. We've had all sorts of businesses suffer because of COVID and the impact of that. In terms of crime, what we've seen across the board is understandably and I guess sensibly, crime that involves the movement of people and the gathering of people has really has diminished, as you'd expect, in and around the CBD, but we can't rest on our laurels. Without a doubt, soon, with the opening up of society and the community, we need to make sure that we don't drop the ball when it comes to crime in and around the CBD. And I have all the confidence in the world in my successor at Central Metropolitan Region, Peter Thurtell, and the commanders, Rowan Cramsey down at the city, are excellent officers, and I have no doubt that they will keep an eye on crime. But in terms of protests, last year, of course, we saw huge protests internationally around the Black Lives Matter movement, and they played out in and around the Sydney CBD, as you're all aware. 2020 was a challenging period, I guess, for law enforcement worldwide on the back of the George Floyd death in the United States. And if you think that things don't have a direct impact on what happens here in New South Wales and certainly in and around the city, you just have to look at that example, because in a very short period of time, we saw between 20 and 30,000 people on the 6th of June last year in a large protest in and around the Sydney CBD. We were able to facilitate that on the back of a New South Wales Court of Appeal decision, which deemed the protest authorised. And that was a challenge for us, because at the time we had local events that were contributing to, I guess, community sentiment around that issue as well. Right here in and around the Sydney CBD area, we had, an officer who conducted a leg sweep on a young Aboriginal boy at Surrey Hills. That fed right into the challenges around how we would police that protest leading up to the 6th of June last year, and other incidents which really, I guess, fueled community sentiment, which is understandable. That protest was one of the biggest and most challenging ones that I've ever been involved in, and it was followed up a week later with a smaller protest of around 3,000 or 4,000 people. And then from there, some other protests around the Domain area that saw us go to the Supreme Court again for the first time in many years. And on each occasion, the Supreme Court ruled, I guess, in our favour, if you want to put it that way, and deemed the protests to be unauthorised. In saying that, as I said, we are more than happy to facilitate protests in and around the city and do it in normal times, day in and day out. But they were really challenging times for us. And of course, the impact of COVID and the policing of those protests really, in my mind, was where the fragility came from around our legitimacy and the trust that we have with the community at large. Have they stopped? Of course not. We still have protests which are ongoing now in relation to the COVID situation, lockdown, anti-vaccination protests, etc., etc. And those things I believe will continue to go on. I sit back now as in my current role as a Deputy Commissioner for Regional New South Wales, and whilst we've had protests in regional areas, they're small compared to what my colleagues are dealing with here in the city, and they're challenging. And I think as time goes on, protests will continue to be a challenge for the New South Wales Police Force. But in saying that, when I look internationally and I look most certainly to our colleagues down south in Melbourne, I think that we do them pretty well compared to others. Now, I'm sure that others may well have different views on that, but believe me, putting yourself in a position where you are making operational decisions on the ground is such a challenge for our police officers, and I think that they do a tremendous job in doing that. The second issue that I'll briefly touch on, because I am mindful of the time, is obviously the 24-hour economy and what we saw over the last few years around alcohol-related restrictions. So I came into the role of Commander of the Central Metropolitan Region on the 1st of July 2019, and I think it was within a week or two, I found myself at a parliamentary inquiry, in fact two, in 2 days. The first one being around the nighttime economy, and the second one being around music festivals. So for me, I had the responsibility as the corporate spokesperson for alcohol-related crime, getting up to speed on what's occurred, certainly since around 2000, or most particularly 2004, up until that time, with alcohol-related crime and the challenges that came with policing alcohol-related crime in and around the Sydney CBD area, was something that I had to do in a very, very short period of time. But appearing before the parliamentary inquiry, which I welcome the opportunity to talk to the issue, I remember saying the quote that, I support a vibrant nighttime economy, and I do. I support a vibrant nighttime economy, but it has to be a safe nighttime economy. And I stand by what I said at that parliamentary inquiry, and I stand by that now. The New South Wales Police Force does support a great, vibrant nighttime economy in and around the CBD. We support Sydney being an international city on par, if not better, of course, than other cities around the world. But the city's got to be safe. And the work that's gone into policing the Sydney CBD, King's Cross, Surrey Hills, and other areas in the past can't be forgotten. We can't go back to, I guess, the bad old days, I'll put it that way, when it comes to alcohol-related crime. And I don't think we will. I think that we've turned a corner. I think that the community sentiment around it, nobody wants to go back to those days of violence. And I will look, I guess, from where I sit now on that as we move forward. And I see it as a real opportunity for the city to showcase itself into the future with not just alcohol-related venues, etc., but restaurants and all those different things, and theatre and things that we could that would showcase, what is the greatest city on earth in such a great fashion. So again, we just can't see the return to violence that we saw in the past, and most certainly not the types of injuries that we're presenting to local hospitals as we move forward. And again, I don't think we will. But we will most certainly be watching, we'll most certainly be working with business owners and stakeholders across the board as we do, to make sure that doesn't happen. I guess, where to from here, just to conclude, economic downturn and the recovery from COVID is yet to play out, as you're all aware. Now, there will be obviously significant impact has occurred on businesses. We need to get businesses back up on their feet. We need to get society and the community back up on its feet coming out of COVID. And I think, again, there's a real opportunity to do that in a really productive, really innovative way. But the impact on the economy will be felt. And for us, we'll be watching closely about how that plays out in terms of social outcomes, most particularly around mental health issues, most particularly around crime rates. And we'll see what comes of it, but we're prepared and we're ready for it. But I think ultimately, I'd like to see, this time next year, hopefully us all back up on its feet, the city alive and vibrant, but a safe and vibrant environment at the same time. So I might just finish there, but there were a couple of challenges over the last couple of years that I've personally watched and been involved in, and undoubtedly, given the type of city Sydney is, there'll be more challenges for us and more opportunities for us as we move forward. But I might open it up for questions if that's okay.
Thank you very much for that. We have some questions. I think we've got time to get a couple of those in. Mr. Little, would you like to go first? Our Sergeant in Arms has a question for you. Jeff, you're on mute.
Deputy Commissioner Michael, thanks very much, Glenn. I'm a retired member of the service, Mike, and International Chairman of the Police Law Enforcement Professionals Fellowship of Rotarians, of which Michael Fuller's our patron, our international patron. So it's great to have you on board. Great to see you rising through the ranks as you are, and you have a wonderful future ahead of you. There's one thing with this COVID problem that we have, unprecedented, of course. How do we separate the criminality associated with it and the civil disobedience? I mean, how are we prescribing what might appear to many people to be civil breaches of the law in terms of COVID? Just the mere going beyond 5K and being picked up on the beach, etc., etc. Very thorny for we as police, because we've never done this before, and it seems like we've been doing the bidding of our masters and making us very unpopular as a result. But this is not just local; it's an international problem of policing in this current pandemic. What might you have to say about that?
Well, look, I think you're right, Jeff. We've never done this before, and we've never had to do this before. But you're right; it's an international issue, and law enforcement's evolving and it's changing. The challenge for us has been enforcing health orders, and we don't write health orders, as you well know. The challenge has been enforcing them, and I think that we've done it in a pretty measured and tempered way for some time. We have 24-hour legal advice available to us, so officers on the ground pick up the phone or the radio into the police operations centre, where they do get legal advice in terms of the situations that they find themselves in. Up until the Delta variant, the number of infringement notices that we issued was less than 3,000 in many months. The Delta variant was a different kettle of fish, and the Commissioner made a decision to launch an operation which I guess moved us from a more educative posture into an enforcement posture for a range of reasons, because of the risk that the Delta variant posed to us. A challenge when you've got different demographics and different differences between regional New South Wales, the Sydney CBD, Southwest Sydney versus eastern suburbs versus the northern part of the city. And it's been a challenge, but the officers by and large have taken a a measured response. But in saying that, I think it is time for us to start thinking about getting back to a steady state and getting back to community policing, which is hasn't been put on the back burner, but it's been certainly a challenge for us to maintain the focus on it, given the role that we've had to take as an organisation. But and I'd like to see us into next year back to some sort of a steady state and back to really re-engaging with the community and working through re-establishing that trust with the community. I don't think it's lost, but it certainly was strained, as I said. The criminal element, there's plenty of criminals right now in parts of New South Wales who are well and truly got COVID. And it's been a challenge for us to, I guess, determine breaches, determine who's doing what, but we've done the best we can as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you for that response. We got time for one more question, and if I could ask Kathy Tate to put that question to you. Thank you.
Hello, Deputy Commissioner. Thank you for such an amazing and insightful talk. My question touches on the effects these challenging times have had on youth in the CBD, and has the role changed for the Youth Command in how they relate or are relating to youth?
That's a really good question. Thank you for that. I guess in and around the CBD, we haven't seen youth because there hasn't been people around the CBD by and large. Now, I'm generalising, of course, but the role of youth, I think it's had a significant impact. And I'm the father of two daughters, 12 and 15, and it's been a challenge. My wife and I struggle with homeschooling and all those different things, like most everyone else in society too. And I think I can't help but look at them and go, the impact of them not being at school is yet to play out down the track. So I think it's been a challenge. The Youth Command itself, unfortunately, we've had to see, because of COVID restrictions, PCYCs not being able to operate to full capability, to their full capacity. So that's been a challenge for them. But the Youth Command themselves have jumped in and helped out with compliance operations. They were most certainly out at Kudos Bank Arena when the Year 12 students were being vaccinated, just to be there and just to be that sense of, I guess, not just safety, but facilitating working with the youth to get them vaccinated. So it's impacted on us without a doubt. But I think that the issue around the longer term impact on youth from COVID around the world is yet to play out, to be honest. That's my own personal opinion.
Thank you for answering those questions for us, Deputy Commissioner. May I now ask James Allen to give the vote of thanks to our speaker. James.
Thanks, Glenn, and it's my pleasure to offer a vote of thanks. But perhaps before I do so, may I add my congratulations to the awardees earlier in the meeting. Job's well done, and it's great that this program of police awards is continuing. Deputy Commissioner Willing, thank you very much indeed for your talk today. I think it was quite enlightening. Clearly, the police have had some significant challenges in obviously dealing with the COVID situation, and I'm sure all of us, all of you and all of us, will be delighted when you don't have to man the New South Wales Victorian border again, and we can actually cross over it and go and visit our grandchildren in Melbourne and all those sorts of things. So. But look, thank you very much indeed. It's been a really interesting talk. On your behalf and in your name, the club will make a donation to the Rotary Foundation in support of the Rotary Give Every Child a Future program, which is a program that is it's our centenary program, which is going to vaccinate, or is in the process of vaccinating 100,000 kids across 9 Pacific Island countries with 3. Right. So thank you very much. On behalf of the club, we really welcome the input and the opportunity to hear you talk.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.